What's up, everybody? It's Ty the Bourbon Guy, and today we're going to talk about some of the bottles that I'll be looking for in 2024. The first one that I think I have to start with is the Old Forester 1924. Now, those that are not familiar, Old Forester 1924 is the newest addition to the Whiskey Row series, and this will be their 10-year-old bourbon. This one reminds me of either the 1920, 1910 especially, additions, or even like the Jack Daniel's bonded or triple mash, to where when these first are released, I think that they'll get swooped up. I think that they will be harder to find in the beginning. I think that people will be trying to figure out a way to get them to consumers other ways, but I think that overall it sounds like something that should be readily available. I don't know that this is one that you're going to really have to hunt unless you want to be like the first one to get it or something. I think if you just wait it out, I think you'll find it, especially at that price point. I think that it'll be one that ends up remaining on the shelves, and it sounds like it's going to be there and be a mainstay as part of the Whiskey Row series. Now, when 1910 came out, there was an initial push, and then they all seem to have gone away, and then they came back. So don't know if that was a demand type of thing or what, but that particular bottle, like I said, the Jack Daniel's bonded for me in my area was a very similar, issue where these bottles are going to be available, widely available, and now those bottles just sit there on the shelf, and that's the way it should be. But in the beginning, people kind of treat it like it's an allocated item. I think with the hype behind this one, I could see it flying off the shelf. But again, hopefully Old Forester has that product availability in order to keep up with the demand. But we'll see. But either way, I'm really excited to try that. It's a 10-year-old bourbon. Should be a very good product. It's a lower proof compared to like their cask strengths. I believe it's around 100. And so Old Forester for me always drinks a little bit better at a lower proof. When I go into the cask strength range, it's sometimes can be a little bit hot, but Old Forester 1920 at 115 proof is a fantastic bottle as well. So, Old Forester is one that, depending on the proof, can change the overall experience for me. But either way, I'm really excited for that particular bottle. The next one up is right here in Indiana. Starlight Distillery is coming out with a toasted barrel bourbon. This is supposed to be a limited edition, I believe. It says so on the label at least. And so I don't know how easy this will be to find or how difficult. I'm actually in Indiana, so hopefully a little bit easier. I don't know if it's like a distillery exclusive or something like that. I'm hoping that it at least has distribution within the state, and then I'll still be able to get this one. I have not got a chance to go down to the distillery yet, hopefully sometime soon. But either way, I hope that this one is actually released a little bit so that we actually have a chance to get it, and not just a distillery exclusive. But either way, the toasted barrel bourbons, I've really started to enjoy them. There's certain ones that I wasn't a fan of originally, but then there's other toasted bourbons that have come through that have been, I think, fantastic. And I think Starlight does a very good job at finishing and secondary barrels and all that stuff. So I really look forward to this bottle and seeing how they're going to use these toasted barrels and all that stuff to see, what that product ends up being. But I'm definitely excited for that bottle. Hopefully I can get it. Speaking of toasted, Elijah Craig Toasted Rye. This one's supposed to be 94 proof. So they had the rye. Now they're going to toast it. Kind of obviously following the path of the bourbon. You had the bourbon, and then you had the toasted bourbon. The toasted bourbon, I feel like I've heard a lot of whiskey enthusiasts say they didn't really care for it. But it's one that I think kind of gets people a little bit more interested in whiskey, especially if you've been familiar with the Elijah Craig brand. So for them to expand into rye, I think is, very interesting. And I'm interested to see how their toasted process goes through with the rye. Now, I've seen it with the bourbon. Really curious to see what it does with the rye. I would love to add that bottle. It seems like that one should be a mainstay. But I don't really know how it's going to get eaten up in the beginning. I think we kind of saw that again with the toasted. Toasted bourbon seemed to be very difficult to find for some reason. And then now I think I've seen it not just everywhere, but I definitely have seen it around, and it is findable. So I'm hoping that the rye comes out strong and, is a little bit more findable. Indiana seems to always have an issue with rye whiskey anyway. Seems like we're always one of the last ones to get it. So I might have to go out of state for this one or try to look online or something like that. But, hopefully it's easy and it's a bottle that I'll be able to get in 2024. The next one on the list is Hard Truth 4-grain bottled in bond. This particular bottle I'm very, very excited about. Hard Truth, being out of Indiana, a great brand to follow. They have been doing some amazing things for a few years now, and for a few years I've actually been on that train. And ever since I had that sweet mash rye, I believe it was batch 1 or batch 2, it was earlier, but it was one that I knew, if this is this good already, where's it going to go from here? And the other thought I had is, when they start getting into bourbon, what's that going to look like as well? And especially a bottled in bond, we'll kind of see where they're at. But the rye has been amazing. They've done some different finishes. I'm glad to see they finally seem to be getting the recognition across WhiskeyTube or across the internet or whatever it may be. I'm excited for Hard Truth because I feel like that's well deserved. A great brand making great products and very passionate about what they do. So for them to come out with a 4-grain bottled in bond, I'm really excited to see where that goes, see how that tastes, and hopefully it's a bottle I can get here in 2024 as well. Speaking of brands I'm excited about, another one, I feel like I'm on repeat. There's a lot of brands I'm excited about. Green River. Now this one is a little different. This is the single barrel private select, but this will be at cask strength. If you've seen the other bottles prior, it's been a full proof. So I want to see this particular bottle at a little bit of a higher ABV, and hopefully that flavor maintains and it doesn't get to a point where it's too hot. Sometimes when you go up to cask strength and you go higher in proof, that can be that way. But with this being a wheated bourbon and this kind of the makeup of it, I think that it shouldn't be too hot. That's just my own thought, but we'll see. Again, I always say there's only one way to know that for sure, and that's to try it. So I'll be on the lookout for any private selects or store picks or anything like that I can find at cask strength from Green River. Next up on the list, we all know I'm a sucker for Booker's. It just is what it is. I don't know why. It's a bourbon that's a very solid one for me. Wasn't always that way though, for me personally, but there were a few different batches that really got me hooked. And since then I've been locked on, and I just hope that each one has a wow factor to it. I think there's some that don't necessarily have a wow factor, but they are still fantastic bottles. I know people will argue the price points of it, and I could see that argument. There's other bottles out there that are a little bit cheaper and maybe easier to find, and it still provides a great value for sure. I won't argue against that. But when you find a bottle that you just enjoy finding or enjoy having, I just love Booker's. I mean, when you find that one, just keep buying it. That's fine. And so they get me for sure with all the different batches and everything else. But hopefully it's on the up and up. I think we saw Little Book Chapter 7 last year come out, and that made a turn, in my opinion. I thought that kind of, I love Chapter 3 of Little Book, and this is not about Little Book, but I love Chapter 3. And then 4, 5, 6, I felt like were just not really what I was expecting after having 3. And then to go back to 7, I kind of thought that, now we're on the right path again. I'm hoping that that's kind of the case with the Bookers, even though I don't really feel like they fell off. I just think that I'm looking for that one to just wow me. And I'm hoping that comes out of this year. So the 4 batches this year that are coming out are the Springfield batch would be 2024-01. 2024-02 will be the Beam House batch. 2024-03 is the Jerry's batch. And 2024-04 is the Master Distiller's batch. Based on the names, I mean, it seems like the 04 lately has kind of been one that people kind of go to. Again, I get them anytime I see them. I love them. I mean, Booker's either way is just one that I like to go to. It's one that I like to bring out when people are over. Just fantastic pour either way, regardless of what the arguments are. Again, I understand the arguments, but I still love it. It is what it is. All right, the next one up is from Barrell Bourbon. Now, here's another brand that I'm really excited that is finally getting the recognition. I think people knew about Barrell Bourbon, but to see everybody talking about them right now and see them on everybody's lists, that just makes me excited for that brand. I think that's one, again, that they've proven, at least to me, for a long time now, that they know how to blend bourbon and they know how to do, the finishing process as well. So to see this cask finishing series that they're doing, the Tale of Two Islands, the Amberana, and now they're going to have one of a Mizunara finish, I think, to me, it's almost like, what else do they need to do? I mean, they have shown, whether it's Seagrass or Dovetail or, some of the private selects, what else do they need to do to prove to people that they know how to finish whiskey, and they know how to blend whiskey very well, and they know how to finish whiskey very well. So another one on the list. Hopefully I get a chance to find that bottle and try that bottle in 2024. But again, either way, I'm just excited for Barrell and what they're doing, and I can't wait to see what else happens. I think you have some of the batches, that kind of just will be trial and error, I guess, if you want to say it that way, where just you try different batches and see which one you like the best, or see if one stands out to you or has that wow factor of their regular bourbon or their rye. But in terms of this finishing, again, they've proven to me that they know how to do it very well. So anytime they have a product like that comes out and is going to be released, I'm all for it. All right, and last but not least, Sagamore Spirit Manhattan Finish. I got a chance, this would be probably about 3 or 4 years ago now, but I got a chance to talk with Sagamore Spirit way back when. And when I talked with them, they actually sent me a few different samples, and one of them was the Manhattan Finish. And as I talked with them, we did this podcast, and they basically said that, as we went through the different samples, they didn't really tell me much about much of it. I just poured it in a glass, tried it. And so when we got to the Manhattan Finish, I didn't really know too much about it. I don't even know if it was, I think it was labeled maybe, but when I tried it, I poured the whole sample in the glass and then, tried it, and I thought it was amazing. And then they told me that they no longer have it available. And so I was upset because I was like, well, at that, I wouldn't have poured the whole sample, right? I would have saved a little something, even a drop or something. And they kind of just laughed and said, that's why we didn't tell you what it was, or didn't tell you that it was no longer available because we wanted you to enjoy it. And I did enjoy it. The thing about that was fun was later on, I found it to be my mission, I guess, to go try to see if I could find that bottle somewhere. And luckily I did. I found a liquor store that had, I think, a few, I don't even remember how many now they had, but a few of them that were just sitting there collecting dust, and I bought them all. So it was a chance for me to go find a bottle and hunt, and made it a little bit fun that way, I guess. But it was a bottle that they told me back then that it would be coming out again in the future, but they weren't really sure timing. I wasn't really sure either, so I wasn't going to take the chance. I bought every bottle that was at that liquor store that day just to make sure I had some. But I think this is one, especially somebody that maybe is more interested in cocktails. If you're trying to get them into ryes and into whiskey in general, whether, drinking it neat or on a rock or whatever, I think finishing whiskey like this will help draw that crowd in as well. And then there's other times where, I myself, I love drinking straight bourbon and rye whiskeys, but sometimes I don't want that. Sometimes I'm in a mood for something different. For me, I don't know why I'm this way, but when I eat dinner or eat a meal, I don't necessarily want a straight bourbon. I will do it, but if I'm kind of having a drink with dinner or a meal, some of the finishing products are actually some of my favorite to pair. And I think you can do a little bit more in terms of pairing with food, but that's a whole nother video. The Manhattan Finish, I'm excited for this bottle. I can't wait to see what the new one is, compare that to the old one, and just see, did it improve, or was the original just the original and it was just that good. So the fact that it's a Manhattan Finish, vermouth, cherry brandy, and bitters barrels. So, yeah, Manhattan in a bottle is for sure what this will be. Again, I can vouch for that first one. I don't know how the second batch is going to be, but that first one was absolutely amazing. Again, it was one that I think you can kind of start to pull a different group of people in to drinking whiskey, neat or on a rock, because it's more of that cocktail feel to it. I think we've kind of even seen an increase in the pre-made cocktails. Now they have Manhattans that are actually bottled, and you can try them and buy them already made up. Same with Old Fashioned. So we're starting to see that. And so I think Sagamore was one of the first ones I ever saw do it this way, where yes, they finish it. Yes, it reminds me of a Manhattan, but at the end of the day, it's still a whiskey that's finished. So I feel like that finishing does not overpower this, does not make this a pure cocktail. It just brings out those characteristics and makes it a very enjoyable experience. So again, that's batch 1. We'll see what this second batch will be. Either way, I'm excited for it. I'm excited for all of these bottles in 2024. I'm sure there's going to be so much more that's going to come out this year that I don't even know of yet, or is not on my radar, or not on any list or anything like that. But these are the bottles right now that I'll be looking for this year. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.